And greetings, everyone, and welcome to Buzz for Good, where we talk all things nonprofit, the people they serve and the good they do. And this week, Southwest Virginia, and especially the law enforcement community, were shaken by the tragic killing of Carroll County Sheriff's Deputy Logan Utt. Just before his May 29th shooting death, a new nonprofit reached out to me seeking some buzz, SHIELD Chaplaincy, which helps law enforcement officers throughout the Roanoke area handle the trauma and stresses of their work so that they can better serve our communities and their families. So on today's show, I'll be buzzing with Darren Potter, founding chaplain of SHIELD Chaplaincy. And he has spent a lot of his time this past week in Carroll County with the law enforcement community. And right after our talk, he was heading back there to attend Deputy Utt's funeral. Chaplain Potter will share how he founded his organization and how it works each and every day to help law enforcement officers, who in turn help us all. My name is Michael Hemphill. I'm the creator and host of the TV show Buzz that airs on public television, where we feature the great work that nonprofit organizations do and the marketing professionals affiliated with the American Advertising Federation of Roanoke, who donate their time and talent helping nonprofits achieve more buzz. And you can find out more about my work at buzzforgood.com, BUZZ4good.com, as well as my social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok, all at Buzz for Good. And on our TV show, our newest episode in my home state of Alabama airs June 11th on Alabama Public Television, starring Kid One Transport, a nonprofit that provides transportation for low-income children and expectant mothers to medical appointments. And here in Virginia, all are invited to our free watch party on June the 24th at Big Lick Brewery in downtown Roanoke to celebrate our newest buzz, starring Southwest Virginia Wildlife Center. And more details about all of that on my website, buzzforgood.com. And now, here is my conversation with Darren Potter of SHIELD Chaplaincy. And it is my pleasure to welcome here to Buzz for Good, Darren Potter, who is the founding chaplain of SHIELD Chaplaincy. Welcome.
It's good to be with you today.
Yeah. Now, you've had a week. About a week ago, we had the unfortunate shooting death of Carroll County Sheriff's Deputy Logan Utt, and the work that SHIELD does in part, revolves around such tragedies. So I know you're probably limited in what you can say due to confidentiality, but I'd love for you just to kind of walk us through, as much as you can, the work that you've done over the last week in helping the Carroll County community with Deputy Utt's passing.
Sure, and understanding I am somewhat limited with what I'll be sharing, but our mission with SHIELD Chaplaincy is really focusing on officers and their families, and we do that primarily locally with our law enforcement agencies in and around the Roanoke Valley. Our chaplains are really embedded with the departments. We assist with peer support here locally after a critical incident of a variety of natures. But in this situation down in Carroll County, one of the organizations that we assist with in various parts of the state is called VA LEAP, Virginia Law Enforcement Assistance Program. And so we partner with them to assist departments after incidents like this, and we will do what I would refer to as the ministry of presence. Some of my friends with VA LEAP would call compassionate loitering, and it's just to be present and available. Should anyone want to talk or want to spend a little time with my facility dog, Scarlet. Scarlet has been a huge tool and benefit to us in those types of situations where she just brings a great deal of comfort.
And I would imagine Scarlett, everyone loves dogs and just provides a nice introduction to the work that you do. As far as, somebody who just maybe wants to start petting a dog, that oftentimes can open up conversation, for someone in need.
Indeed, one of the local officers who happens to be on the SWAT team with his department, he was talking with me one day. He said, "You know, chap," he said, "Scarlett's uh, she's really like an emotional breaching tool."
Hmm.
And I was like, "That's the perfect description." These men and women have tools to breach doors and get through a variety of locking mechanisms, and sometimes it's just like going in hard and heavy and busting through that door. But that's what Scarlett is. She's an emotional breaching tool, and I can have an officer who's 6'4", 270 pounds, with their chin on their chest, and I can ask them how they're doing, and the answer is almost always, "I'm fine."
Fine. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, yeah, I can see that.
Or
Maybe you should come in and
yeah,
talk for a minute.
yeah, I hear that, but I don't necessarily believe it. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so they'll come in and pet Scarlett's head for a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden they find themselves sharing about maybe a call they were on recently, or maybe it's something going on at home, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also know we talked before we started recording here. You're there in your shirt and tie because you're getting ready to leave Roanoke to head to Carroll County for the funeral of Deputy Utt. So our thoughts and prayers go with you.
I do appreciate that, and I know they do as well. Of course, the response from the community there and really the surrounding area has been very strong. And I know the sheriff and the department's very grateful for that.
Well, once again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Darren Potter, who is the founding chaplain of SHIELD Chaplaincy. And been talking about what you've been doing this past week in response to the uh, unfortunate shooting death of Carroll County Sheriff's Deputy Logan Utt. But let's take a few steps back here and do a better job introducing SHIELD. Now, SHIELD, there is an acronym. SHIELD standing for serve, heal, inspire, encourage, love, develop. And, kind of tell us how this organization came into being.
That's a great question. I began, well, really the roots of it. I had a friend from high school reach out to me in around 2006, maybe 2007, who had been serving in law enforcement in another part of the state. And I had not heard from him since high school. So it had been like 15, 16 years. And he reached out to me, and he was really struggling with post-traumatic stress and was coming up to get counseling from the VA. And I just
And this PTSD, was that work related?
absolutely,
Okay.
uh, from both his time in the military as well as in law enforcement, he
Mhm.
had a number of incidents that he had been involved with that hit him hard, stayed with him. But he also had one of his fellow officers shot and killed in the line of duty, and he had a traffic stop. And then he also, his best friend in the department, had taken his own life just about an hour after he had spoken with him.
Mm.
And so that and a number of other things just began piling up. And so while he was coming up to get counseling, I just began walking with him as a friend and support him. And that's when my eyes really were open to the types of things that law enforcement interact with, and the toll that it can take, the career, the job can take on an officer. So fast forward to 2009, I began volunteering with the Roanoke Police Department in the city in September of '09, and I very quickly began volunteering 30 to 40 hours a month. and
Uh,
did that for years. Really, I did weekly ride-alongs with the officers, and I will tell you, it took me 3 years of showing up consistently before I was widely received.
hmm. Mhm.
Now, there were individuals here and there that were maybe more receptive to me hanging around. But it took 3 years for them to know that they could trust me, that they knew I wasn't just running up and to the fourth floor and talking to command staff about them, or I wasn't going to beat them over the head with the Bible or that kind of thing. I I don't hide the fact that I'm a Christian minister, and certainly I'm more than happy to talk faith with people. But once they discovered I wasn't there to just drag them to my church that I was pastoring at the time. Um, they welcomed me fully,
Mhm.
and after 9 years of that, I used to tell my wife, I said, "Boy, if I could figure out how to get paid to be a full time volunteer chaplain, I would do it."
Well, real quick before we, get to that stage of it, I would like to know. So, I mean, what was your ministry background at that point? Because you're volunteering as a chaplain, but surely there was a paid gig somewhere out there for you.
I had been I had pastored churches for 23 years
Okay.
before I started. Um, Before I launched Shield Chaplaincy.
A particular denomination?
So I'm ordained with the Wesleyan Church, um,
Hmm.
and I've been serving through the Wesleyan Church and one other denomination, the Brethren in Christ, for one church. Happened to be there for 16 years, but uh, yeah, I was serving. I started serving as a pastor in 1995,
Okay.
and um, kind of my wheelhouse. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and pastoral care, walking with people, serving people, caring for people. That's in my wheelhouse. I've always been about that. I think the people, if you were to talk with people that I have served in and through the church world, they would tell you that that's where I would excel the most. And
Mhm.
so the chaplaincy is just it was a very easy step over to that because it's a different context. Um, but it's really serving in the same way, just loving people, caring for people, regardless of what their religious beliefs are, regardless of any of their background or whatnot. Oddly enough, it was a former police officer who became a pastor, um, who led me to faith as a child.
Hmm.
And he had been shot in the line of duty and actually coded, I think, 2 or 3 times, and they brought him back. It was a former police officer who led me to faith as a child, and then during my college years, one of my professors was a during Vietnam. He was with Special Forces and was a demolitions expert, and then he became a drill sergeant for 12 years, and then he became a chaplain in the reserves. And he was my New Testament Greek professor of all things, and he had quite an impact on me. I would say, of all the professors I had, yes, inside the classroom, but our conversations outside the classroom, he had a huge impact on me. So I think in some ways uh, that had more of an impact on me or influence on me than I realized at the time.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting, all these seeds that get planted without us even being aware that they're being planted in our lives that lead to, this harvest that comes at some point. Well, once again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Darren Potter, who is the founding chaplain of SHIELD Chaplaincy, which provides, well, you tell me what SHIELD, what's your mission statement?
Sure. Well, Shield, we simply want to serve those who serve us all. It's kind of our motto, and we just have a simple belief that if officers are doing well mentally and spiritually, that they will find more fulfillment at work, more fulfillment at home, um, and they'll stick around. They'll stay on the job longer, and they'll do a better job while they're there. But it's not merely to try to have greater productivity and more satisfaction out of work. We want these men and women to be well.
Hmm.
And, depending on the studies you see, the average citizen will only experience one, maybe two or three traumatic events in their lifetime.
Hmm.
But an officer will experience, on average, 800 traumatic experiences in a 20 years on the job.
Yeah.
And so that takes a toll. And it
Yeah.
takes a toll on the individual, it takes a toll on the family. Divorce rates are extremely high. The
Suicide rates are high.
suicide rates are extremely high. As you probably have heard, that more officers take their own lives than are killed in the line of duty
Mm.
each year.
Yeah.
And so we try to combat that, and
Mhm.
we do that in a number of ways. We are very active in on the peer teams and all the departments that we serve,
Mhm.
and we take a very active role in that. We also act as a liaison uh, to help refer officers to mental health clinicians and experts. So if something's outside of our wheelhouse, certainly, we help a lot, and we're able to walk with officers through things ourselves quite often. But if something is outside of our wheelhouse, we'll make referrals, and we've probably referred upwards of 60 officers this past
Mm.
year,
Wow.
just to kind of do a check in and help them offload
Mhm.
some of the stress that they carry.
Yeah. Let's pick back up in the chronology here, just so we can get a better sense of the actual creation of the organization Shield Chaplaincy. And that's, you said you were doing this for 9 years, and then told your wife if there's a way if I could figure out how to, basically get paid to do the work so you could do it full time. And
Yeah.
obviously something happened that allowed you to do that.
Well, I really my father passed away, and I got out of town to kind of grieve the loss of my dad. I was going to get away for a week, and the heaviness of losing my dad was gone that very first morning I was gone. And I began from that point on. My thoughts were turned to what a chaplaincy might look like,
Hmm.
and I remember wrestling with that for a while, because I was like, "Hey, God, it doesn't really make sense for me to resign my church and start a nonprofit where I have to raise my own salary while I've got twin daughters getting ready to go to college." And indeed, as it turns out, we launched in September of 2018, right when my daughters were in their first semester. It, it somehow worked out. But I remember when I was at the point where I thought, maybe this is the direction we're going. And I met a friend. His name is Tom England. I sat down with Tom, and I said, "Hey,
I know Tom.
he's a good
Yeah.
guy."
Great
I
guy.
asked,
Great guy. Huge
we
heart.
we don't get together all that often, but when we do, it's like we picked up right where we left off.
Yeah.
It's one of those guys you feel like you've known him forever. And I met Tom for lunch, and I said, I feel like God maybe is calling me to start a law enforcement chaplaincy. First words out of his mouth, he said, "That's so cool." He said, "You could call it Shield." When he said Shield, I grabbed a napkin at that restaurant and wrote down serve, heal, inspire, encourage, love, and develop.
SHIELD. Yeah.
Yeah. Came
Wow.
that quickly. And that was in June. My wife was actually fully on board. She was fully on board with it quicker than me. I had been told that I could go anywhere in Virginia or West Virginia and start a church,
Mhm.
and there would be funding to help that. And
She was just tired of
but
being a pastor's wife.
yeah, maybe so. It's sounds like you might be familiar with some of that, but she honestly, more than anything else, what she told me, because I was considering moving back to the Richmond area and starting a church, and she said, "I'm at peace with resigning where we're at, but I'm not at peace with you leaving the officers that you've
Mm.
invested 9 years in, because I know how much you love them and care about them.
Wow. That's a good wife.
And yes, indeed. And normally I'm the one that's like, yeah, let's do this. And this time it was my wife.
Yeah.
And all I was thinking is like, yeah, but we don't have any money.
And we've got two daughters in college. And,
Yeah, and I'd going to a private Christian university at Southern Wesleyan down in South Carolina, and I was like,
Mm.
they don't give away their education, as it turns
Right.
out. And,
Yeah.
but it all worked out. I remember when I started, I resigned my church in the end of 2018, and that December and January 1, I was sitting in the office that Roanoke City very generously allowed me to use at the police academy. And I remember sitting in my office, I'm a full-time police chaplain. What does a full-time police chaplain do?
Mhm.
And now I'm like, I need four more guys to help me, because every time I bring on another chaplain, I think I'll be able to breathe, but more doors open up,
Yeah.
and there's three of us serving 800 or more officers, dispatchers, and we help with Salem Fire and Rescue as well.
Okay. Yeah, so again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Darren Potter, the founding chaplain of SHIELD Chaplaincy, and he has spent a significant portion of his time this past week in the Carroll County community, helping the sheriff's office there and other law enforcement agencies in that area with the tragic shooting death of Sheriff's Deputy Logan Utt. But you're primarily focused in the Roanoke area. So which departments are you serving here in Roanoke?
So we serve the Roanoke Police Department, Roanoke County Police Department, Salem PD, and Salem Fire and Rescue. Uh, we just took on the Vinton Police Department, the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, and then the resident office of the DEA.
Okay. So, and I imagine like you get a little funding from each of these organizations, each of these departments that to do your work.
I would love to say yes, but
Okay.
I will say after about a year and a half, 2 years of serving Roanoke County, they actually brought me on part time.
Hmm.
So I still work part time with Roanoke County, which is a huge help.
Yeah.
And in fact, that really opened the door to allow me to hire a full time chaplain to come on board with me. But I serve part time as they weren't sure they could call me a chaplain at the time. So they said, we need another title for you. I said, how about CEO? I can be the chief encouragement officer.
Chief Encouragement Officer. That's lovely.
Uh, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Not everyone in the county agreed. So they went with life coach.
Okay.
Now everybody calls me chaplain. It's life coach, chaplain, whatever. So I'm part time with Roanoke County Police in that role. Roanoke City, the Roanoke Police Department has contributed the last couple of years, but 70% roughly of our support comes from individuals.
Wow.
So and 70% of our support comes from individuals giving anywhere from $50 a month to $1,000 a month.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's a few churches that will help out either monthly or quarterly, that kind of thing. There's been a couple of smaller businesses that have helped out here and there as well, and so we're very grateful for all that. The computers in Roanoke and the Roanoke Mechanical HVAC, they came on board to help, and as giving increases, we was very fortunate to hire a second full-time chaplain to serve with me. Gareth Stevenson and Adam Hughes are my other two chaplains,
Mm-hmm.
both ordained ministers as well. But they were both already volunteering. So Chaplain Stevenson was volunteering as a chaplain with Roanoke Police Department, starting around 2015-16. And Chaplain Hughes started volunteering in Salem the same time Chief Crawley asked me to come in. And Chief Crawley was there at the time, asked me to come in and help with the chaplaincy. And Adam was asked to come in at the same time, and he started volunteering in 2020. What's interesting about my other two chaplains, they have experience on the fire side of the house.
Okay.
Stevenson had 9 years running fire and rescue, and Chaplain Hughes had 17 years as a paramedic, or most of that
Mhm.
time as a paramedic. And so they understood that side of the house very well, and
Mhm.
they understand that lingo. So sometimes fire departments, will ask us to help with things, and I always send those guys. They know the language. All I know is guys show up and spray water on stuff. So
Yeah.
it's turns out there's more that they do than
A little
that.
more to it, right? Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So those guys help.
Yeah.
And once they understood that there's a culture difference between the two sides,
Mhm.
they did extremely well. And
Yeah. If ever you've been to the Guns and Hoses hockey game at the Berglund Civic Center, you know that there's a culture difference.
very much so, very much so. But
Um,
it's such an honor to serve these men and women,
mhm.
and we've walked through um, a lot of hurt, a lot of heartache, a lot of pain with our officers, and even this week as we are serving down in Carroll County, just being present and available for them, and
Yeah.
um, we had things happen back home here, and I'm not saying anything that hasn't been out in the news, but a teenage young man drowned in the river.
Hmm.
While we were down in Carroll County, we started getting calls like, "Hey, chap, can you give me an hour and a half? We'll head back that way."
I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to get to, you know, what's happened this past week. Thankfully, is a rare occurrence of an officer who's killed in the line of duty. But like a typical week would involve things like what you've just talked about, a teenager, drowning, and what makes that rise to, I guess, your attention.
So we tell officers all the time, we'll go to their lineups or their roll calls before their shift begins, and we'll often remind them like, "Hey, who can initiate a call to peer support?" And we make clear it's everybody,
Hmm.
right? Anybody can call at any time. So sometimes we'll have a supervisor reach out and for make a request. "Hey, we just had this call. We could use you checking in on these men and women." Um, Sometimes we're called to scenes. We do serve the public as well. Our primary focus is caring for the officers, however.
Yeah.
But sometimes we'll be called to a scene. Sometimes we'll assist with death notifications. Sometimes we'll just comfort family members. Maybe it's a traumatic thing for someone to come home and or to go check on a loved one and find that they have passed away, and they're you know most people don't do that on a regular basis.
Hmm.
And so sometimes they'll call us to a scene like that as family and friends are gathering, and we can help bring some comfort to them while the officers or investigators are doing what they have to do in that situation. And so, but we also will meet with officers before they go home at the end of the shift after a bad call.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a child fatality or uh, um, a fatal wreck and that kind of thing. And we will pull in the officers. It's voluntary. We don't strong arm people, and they're sometimes they're both voluntold, maybe, I don't know,
Yeah.
lovingly.
Sure.
But we'll meet with them. We'll have what we call a CISM defusing, a critical incident stress management defusing. It's just about a 10 to 15 minute check in, like just acknowledging the yuck of that call.
Yeah.
And there's an educational piece of just things to keep an eye out for, like things that they might experience cognitively, physically, those kinds of things.
Hmm.
And just to normalize some of that and make sure that they're aware that there's help available. And so we'll give them some different tools. Um, and we do that because what studies have shown is that early intervention can reduce the need for later counseling by 50%.
Really? Hmm. Why is that?
Well, it's because if we don't get that early intervention,
Does it make
uh,
them just more aware of things that might happen that then, mitigate something that might happen down the road? They'll get some treatment sooner.
that's part of it, and sometimes there's not even a need for it because if we don't give that educational piece and make them aware of some of the things that they might experience, they might just swallow that. They might just bury that.
Hmm.
But they start having these thoughts like it, it's not unusual for law enforcement officers and other first responders to have frequent nightmares. Um, it's not unusual for them to, um, there's these spikes in adrenaline and crashes thereafter.
Hmm.
That physically takes a toll on you. But you know, we talk with officers. Recently, there was an officer in one of the departments that retired recently, and just before retirement, he's like, I don't think he said, one of my chaplains was talking to him, said, I really don't think I need counseling. Like I'm fine. I'm good. It's okay. You have any calls that like stick with you? So, oh yeah, I got there's one that just pops back, 2 or 3 times a week or so. And I have a nightmare about once a week, twice a week. Um, he's like, yeah, well, that's not normal.
Yeah.
Like most people don't have that.
Hmm.
So well, every cop I know has that. He's like, yeah, but that's why we're saying maybe you ought to go talk to somebody. And we did make a referral. That gentleman did go and went through EMDR, which is a very helpful tool, a type of therapy that can help with that.
Hmm.
It engages both. They do bilateral stimulation and sometimes they'll just do it by tapping or that kind of thing. Just engages both sides of the brain,
Yep.
and it helps to refile that memory in a safer part of the brain, and takes the sting out of it, if you will.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Again, joined here on Bus for Good by Darren Potter, the founding chaplain of SHIELD Chaplaincy, which provides chaplaincy services for law enforcement officers and agencies in the Roanoke Valley, and then elsewhere when needed, such as this week in their work in Carroll County, as Carroll County Sheriff's Office has dealt with the tragic shooting death of Deputy Logan Utt. Um, it seems self-evident, but what are the unique challenges that law enforcement officials face compared to other professions that maybe require your services?
Sure. It's a great question, and one of the biggest challenges is really just the schedule.
Mm.
Uh, now there's a small percentage of officers, because of their role in the department, maybe it is more of like a 8 to 5 kind of situation. However, for the vast majority of officers, patrol officers, um, most of the departments we serve a 12-hour shift. And in some departments, that will be a permanent shift. They'll work nights. Some will work days. In other departments, they rotate, uh, anywhere from every 2 weeks to every 6 weeks, nights to days. And so that schedule of flipping, it can be very challenging.
Hmm.
Roanoke County, they actually, they have 3 set shifts, and the officers kind of have a role in setting their schedule. And but it's there's the challenge with saying that there's a 12-hour shift is that it's not always a 12-hour shift. In fact, it's usually never a 12-hour shift.
Mm.
Most of the officers, for example, in Roanoke City, would live outside the city, so they're driving in maybe 30 to 45 minutes or so
Hmm.
to get to work. They'll get there early and get changed or that kind of thing. And Then they have their 12-hour shift, and then maybe they have 4 or 5 reports to finish up before they leave. Maybe they've worked all night and they have to hang around for an hour or two and then go to court.
Mm.
Um, if there's um, there might be a call where some of the scenes, if there's been a violent crime of some nature, if there's been a you know a bad wreck, that some of those scenes can take hours. Um, if the SWAT team members, they might be on a barricaded subject call for maybe a day, and so that wears down the officer, but it also puts stress on the home relationships. And
Mhm.
so we offer marriage nights where we do some preventative maintenance and help with communication skills, that kind of thing. And we'll offer a meal, child care, and we do that for free. And we've sometimes we'll have a parenting workshop. Um, but another aspect of what we do, and if I don't mention this, Chaplain Stevenson will be after me. He likes to hunt, and I do my hunting at Fresh Market, Kroger, and Sam's Club. Turns out
I'm with you. Yeah.
they prepackaged
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
It
Yeah.
seems like a good deal to me. I can just go for a hike and not have to worry about trying to find food.
Yeah.
But he enjoys hunting, and so we have leased 100 acres um, just outside of Roanoke a bit, where we can allow officers to just go and relax, enjoy the property, maybe fish in the pond with their kids
Hmm.
during hunting season. They can go out there, and Chaplain Stevenson will hang out in a deer blind with them, or he's got this harness thing that's he puts up in a branch, and he's just like hanging 20 feet up in a tree. And again, he enjoys it. It gives him life, and not for me, but it
Yeah.
gives him life. And so many of our officers enjoy that as well. We've had, I think he said, in the neighborhood of 80 visits down to that property from different officers this past year,
Wow.
and we're hoping to do more with that in the future as funding allows.
Well, the stress of home life, I can only imagine. You have a 12-hour shift where you've had to deal with all sorts of awfulness. But then you come home and probably the last thing you want to do is talk about what you just did or saw at work. And especially for, people who can't fully relate to it. Um, and also you want to be the strong person like you are on the job. You want to be at home, so you kind of keep it bottled up, and then that causes some
Well,
additional anxiety.
one of the things that you don't really think about, but officers are having to make decisions for other people all day long,
Hmm.
right? You don't typically call an officer to say, "Hey, I was having a great day, so I just wanted to call you out here and thank you for your service."
Yeah.
They're showing up because there's a domestic, there's something or something of that nature, where they're literally having to make decisions for people, and they have to do this all day long. And so when they get home and their spouse asks, "Hey, what would you like to eat tonight?" It's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
What
Well, I
What do you
mean,
mean you
would you
don't
like to
care?
go out to eat,
Yeah.
or would you like
Yeah.
to? Yeah, exactly. What
Yeah.
do you mean? Because the spouse is like, all I heard is, I don't, he doesn't care, or she
Right.
doesn't care.
Yeah.
Um,
They don't care
and
about me. Right. Yeah.
it's real easy if they're not intentional to talk to their kids like they're talking to you know
A suspect.
someone they had to interact with in a case earlier in the day. So it's and those are things. A lot of these officers handle those situations very well, and but you know those of us who are not in law enforcement, sometimes have aren't the best at communicating with their spouses and children
Mhm.
and things, right?
They do.
So we want to just help equip um, couples, families, individual officers who are single, just to know how to offload some of the stress. It's one of the things we do when we have those defusings and we have larger meetings called SISM debriefs. But um, that training piece, we also give them some tips on how to communicate with their friends and family about a call because um, social media will have things out there in a nanosecond.
Hmm.
Everybody will know about the call. They won't know any of the details and assume that they do. That's another story, but it's very common for officers to get off of work and then their families or friends are like, "Hey, were you on this call today? Were you on that?" You know, well, how do you talk about that?
Yeah.
So we just have some tips and things for them and along those lines as well.
Hmm. Hmm. I did want to ask, or have you talk about, uh, I think what gets maybe underappreciated, at least by the likes of me, and I've got to believe if by me than others, in viewing your work is, you want to keep law enforcement officers uh, healthy and whole, psychologically, mentally, spiritually. But that can only impact as you said earlier, the quality of their work when they're on the job, and that's where we as the public have a vested interest in the work that you're doing. I've got to believe that the anxieties and stresses of the job, if they go unchecked over the course of, months or years, can lead to poorer interactions with the public. I've got to believe, and I'm speaking. I know you're kind of on that side of the shield,
Sure.
the wall, but I've got to believe that, you know, were there some officer involved altercations or incidents that could have been handled differently had perhaps the law enforcement officer been in a better space psychologically, mentally? I've got to believe that, and so,
I was so
but
sure. I mean, now you would fully expect me, 17 years doing chaplaincy. I love and care about officers, but they're human,
yep.
and I there have been officers who have maybe weren't at their best and maybe made a poor decision or what people don't realize is how often um, you know I say often it is rare. I don't, but when those things happen, like I have seen officers lose their jobs. You
Mhm.
know, they are held accountable,
Yep.
and there's high standards, and not every circle will want to believe that, but there's a great deal of accountability, and of course, the vast majority of departments now have body cameras and those body cameras, I think it's something like 96% of the time, it's in the 90s, will exonerate the officers.
Hmm.
But there are those small percentage of times where it also will go the other way.
Right.
And when that happens,
And those are
the
the ones that are going to make the news.
correct, they'll make
Yeah.
the news, and depending on the severity of it, there's different levels of disciplines that would be of course. But at times it will cost an officer their career.
Hmm.
And so and so their mental state and their overall well-being does play into that. Um, I know how I am when I have a lack of sleep, and maybe that's happening consistently.
Hmm.
I'm I have a shorter fuse, and that's why we try to do these things. It's why my chaplain Stevenson and myself were able to get on some training last week. It's called ASAP. It's a acute stress adaptive protocol. It's a type of
Law enforcement does love its acronyms.
yes. Yeah, well, And listen, the problem is, it doesn't translate to, the fire side of the house, and it
Oh.
doesn't translate to the military. And so many of our officers, have, that experience as well. And there's all
Yeah.
these acronyms. But ASAP,
So ASAP, once again, ASAP is what?
it's acute stress adaptive protocol.
Okay.
It is a low level EMDR, which EMDR is a eye movement, and I can never say this word correctly. I'm going to butcher it, but it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Okay.
Told you I'd butcher that word. But again, that's one of many tools, but that's one tool that has been very effective in helping officers with post traumatic stress. And this ASAP training that we went through and we're now certified to do is an entry level EMDR. EMDR can only be done by clinicians who have been a great deal of training, and that goes into more detail and things like that. The beauty of ASAP is officers don't share anything with us. There's a form I put in front of them. There's 8 steps that I'll walk them through, and it will help reset their thoughts on a particular incident or whatever the case may be. And the average um, lowering of distress that they feel is 54.1%, according to the people that were instructing us.
Hmm.
So over a 50% drop in their distress level after a 45-minute to an hour long session where they're not talking. Certainly if they get amped up or whatever, and we think, oh, you probably benefit from maybe speaking with a clinician. Well, we can make a referral, but we just try to be as well equipped as we can to help these officers offload their stress, know how to interact with it, know how to communicate with their loved ones. And when it's, again, outside of our wheelhouse, well, we'll refer them to someone that has more initials after their names than I do.
Is there one incident or aspect of, a law enforcement officer's uh, job or life that you find yourself addressing more than others? Like, is it the home life? Is it marriage? Is it parenting? Is it something on the job, a particular case, or type of case?
Well, it varies, of course. I will say in general terms, anytime there's a truly innocent victim, whether it be a child
Hmm.
or an animal, that's a whole nother. I could do a whole nother podcast just on that. What animal control has to interact with and see is devastating.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, they're just animals. Well, say that to anybody who has a pet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And animals are truly innocent victims. So
Yeah.
animals,
We're actually
children.
doing an episode right now of my TV show on Southwest Virginia Wildlife Center,
Okay.
which gets animals all day long that have been injured or abandoned or neglected
That's some hard work,
yeah,
and
it is.
so that carries its own trauma. But when there's been an innocent victim, whether it be an animal, elderly, that kind of thing, that seems to hit harder, right?
Right.
Because that can become a moral injury, like
Mhm.
where like we all want to believe that mothers care for their babies. But what happens if you work a case where mom has now killed her baby?
Mhm.
That that's a moral injury. Like that
Mhm.
doesn't fit into my worldview. That doesn't fit into my way of thinking at all.
Yeah.
That a mother would do that to her own baby.
Yeah.
Um, so those types of things can really take a toll. Again, it can show up in different ways, and so we just try to offer we have several tools in the belt that we can utilize. We have several resources that we can utilize. Um, we do a lot. We do a lot of premarital counseling, as well as marriage counseling. But
Mm.
So we do a fair amount of weddings, but we always do premarital counseling because couples who do premarital counseling, 85% of those who do premarital counseling will still stay married for the long haul.
Yep.
Well, that directly combats the divorce rate
Mm-hmm.
among officers.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
we
guess you,
do.
you want to make sure the future spouse knows what he or she is signing up for, and and
Well,
also
and
and
the other way
also
around.
the other way around. Yeah, make sure that they
Yeah.
know, what they're signing up for and how they need to mitigate what happens on the job at home.
Yeah, there's a book that I sometimes will refer to people. It's been around for many years now, but it's called How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk. And when I mentioned that to guys, like, chap, where was that 15 years ago? Like, you could have saved me, like, a lot of heartache and pain, a lot of money, you
Yeah.
know. Um, as they're on their fourth wife or whatever, But
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Mm.
yeah, we certainly want to do some preventative maintenance along the way, and I always tell them, I say, hey, don't hurt my numbers.
Yeah.
Um, I, I've got a good percentage going. I've got about 92, 94% of my the couples that I've officiated their weddings for it. They're still married, so don't 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 hurt my numbers.
I, coming to a close with our conversation with Darren Potter, the founding chaplain of SHIELD Chaplaincy, which provides chaplain services for law enforcement agencies throughout the Roanoke Valley. And we should note this past week in Carroll County, where he has been working with the sheriff's office there, grieving the tragic shooting death of Deputy Logan Utt and actually getting ready to head down to Carroll County for his funeral. Um, you on your website, you have what it was really a startling statistic that I saw, which was uh, by the time someone retires, assuming he or she makes it to retirement, the average life expectancy of a law enforcement officer is only about 18 months after retirement.
So I went to I'm trying to think of the name of it. I went to a training where um, it was really talking about the a good portion of that training was talking about the toll on the heart and the body, and that the gentleman had done a lot of research, and what he'd found, the average number of pension payments that a retired officer will receive before they leave this world is 18.
Mm,
And I'm thinking, this is why SHIELD exists. Like, these men and women are giving 25, 30 years of their life only in serving you and me. And then they look forward to 18 months of retirement. Like, we
mm,
got to do better. Some of those other stats, the average age of a heart attack for the general population is 65, but among law enforcement, it's age 49.
yeah.
And I've seen that played out. I've seen it locally. I of course won't mention names, but we've had, just in the past year, couple of years, we've had officers in their 30s and 40s having strokes and heart attacks and other cardiac events.
Mhm,
Again, a lot of that is swallowing all that stress, and a lot of that are those adrenaline spikes and crashes.
mhm,
And the the um, the body keeps the score. It's a good book to
mm,
take a look at. Whether you're a brick mason that loses your fingerprints, and you have shoulder issues, or you're interacting with 800 traumatic events in your career, the body's going to keep the score on that.
mm.
And so anything that we can do through SHIELD Chaplaincy to help these men and women uh, have a better quality of life in the short term as well as the long term, we want to do it.
Yeah.
As
Last
one
question.
officer,
Mhm,
said, he said, when you give to SHIELD Chaplaincy, you keep them going to keep us serving you,
mhm, mhm.
and that's what it's all about. We're a community. We try to help each other, and if we can encourage these men and women and improve their quality of life, then we believe they're going to do a better job. They're going to stay on the job longer. And because in recent years, um, the average law enforcement career has dropped tremendously. And we want to see those numbers go up, because an experienced officer who is doing well mentally, physically, spiritually is going to do a better job. It's just common sense.
Mhm. Last question, and you just mentioned spiritually, which we really haven't talked about on this conversation, though, uh, you're a chaplain with a Christian background. You mentioned Christianity on your website, but the world that officers oftentimes live in while on the job could certainly make them question whether there is God, given all the awfulness that they see.
Absolutely. And that's a tough thing to walk through, right? When every day you go to work, you're interacting with what I would say is evil, or the consequences of evil. It does take a toll. If God is good, why did this happen? Why would God allow this? Why would God allow this mother to take that baby's life? Why would God allow this man to continue to beat his wife year after year? And those things. So there are those questions that come up, and everybody has core beliefs, whether they believe there's a God or not. And we will walk people through those things, and answer some of those questions. And again, we have people from other faiths that we serve, and they'll reach out to us. They'll specifically ask for us. Um, but those are not 30-second conversations. I can tell you that.
Mhm.
Um, but I think there is peace to be found, and spiritually, and um, if we can help walk officers who have those questions um, through some of that hurt, and to see, maybe look at things in a little bit different light, and take a step back, and get that larger vantage point. Oftentimes, it can help put things in perspective a little differently.
Yeah. So many thanks to you, Darren Potter, founding chaplain, SHIELD Chaplaincy, providing chaplaincy services for law enforcement agencies throughout the Roanoke Valley. Thank you so much for what you do for these officers who are in turn working to keep our community safe and being buzz for goods. So thank you so much. And
Absolutely. And
yeah,
I do appreciate you allowing me to come on and join you today. And I could talk about this all day long. It's a tremendous honor that we get to serve these men and women that we do not take for granted, and we're extremely grateful for those who partner with us to see that we can keep the lights on, as it were.
yeah. And thoughts and prayers as you and the entire law enforcement community head to Carroll County today for the funeral of Sheriff's Deputy Logan Nutt.
Thank you so very much. And I just in closing, I would say that the law enforcement community is a tight one, because there's not that many that serve and put on the badge and uniform. And so even though this is an hour and a half away from us, roughly, I guarantee every officer feels that loss and that hurt. And so when we go down there today, we're not just being present for that department, for those families, and showing support there, and honoring them, but we're there in part to support all the honor guards who will be there today from other departments, the men and women who are feeling this hurt there locally, but all around. These men and women need to know that they're supported, that they are appreciated, and as much as we can, we want to share in this heavy lift of this loss that they're experiencing.
And that'll do it for today's Buzz for Good. Stay connected with the work that we are doing, highlighting and helping nonprofit organizations through my website, buzzforgood.com. as well as my social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok, all at Buzz4Good. And until next time, I hope you will continue being a buzz for good in the community you hold dear and support those nonprofits that work tirelessly each and every day, making your community an even better place to live. Bye now.